welcome to Leaders Recon. Today we're delving back into Army National Guard combat field studies and speaking with historian Major Brian Faltinson of the Wisconsin Army National Guard, and how the Wisconsin Army National Guard uses the state's rich history to develop its leaders in the formation. Sir, for those of us who have not met you or spoken with you before, would you mind giving us a brief introduction?
Yeah, I am Major Brian Faltinson. I am currently the Deputy Director of Public Affairs for the Wisconsin National Guard, but I've been a historian of the Wisconsin National Guard for the past 12 years. And my civilian background is as a historian, and I worked for 19 years for a history consulting firm before coming over to the Guard full-time. I've been in the Guard for 31 years. I started out in the Minnesota Guard. I moved to Wisconsin. I was in an infantry unit for 20 years, and I was a platoon sergeant and a first sergeant deployed to Iraq with the 1st Battalion, 128th Infantry with the 32nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team, the Red Arrow, and that was a good experience. And then I transitioned to the officer side and put those civilian skills to work doing history for the Wisconsin National Guard, and it has been a great experience.
Wow, that's certainly a diverse career, and an infantry background going into a history position is something I definitely feel you on there.
So infantry people, you can branch out and you can use your brain. It can be done.
Outstanding. So what role does a historian play in the modern Army? Like within the Army National Guard, within the Army as a whole, what does a historian really do, and how does it affect the regular formation?
There's several different things a historian can do. The first thing is operationally, as units deploy, they need to collect the documents that they created during their deployments. They need to collect their operations and their after action reviews and their mission reports and various things. So when the unit comes back and what it actually did is recorded, because history does not exist if you don't have the documents and to show what actually happened, and so for people to piece together a story. And so it's a historian coordinates that within their states. They coordinate with the units to collect that material and or ensure that the material is then properly, or in theater, make sure the material is sent to the proper places to where it needs to go so it can get collected. And then all this material is rolled up, and historians many years from now look at it. They build their historical products. They tell the stories of what happened, and they can draw certain lessons from that. And for instance, when we talk about Dawn of the Red Arrow later, I looked at the actual World War I operational records collected by the 32nd Division in France, and they had every staff section, every order, all the awards, and there's 120 boxes of that. I was able to actually look at those documents and then help build the actual story of that division when we were doing our World War I commemoration campaign a couple of years ago. Within the state deployment of the National Guard, there's various important lessons to learn. Quite often, the state has done these missions before. Certainly not the current mission sets with COVID-19, but there've been civil disturbances, there's been flood responses, hurricane responses. These missions have happened before, and a historian can look back at those previous missions, draw up lessons learned, draw up how the media portrayed the Guard for that situation, and then present context to the commander while they're forming their current plan. It can be that will certainly help the commander make a more informed plan, maybe a plan with a little bit more perspective. And then you don't always consider everything when you're in the heat of the moment. If you just take a step back, look at it from a different historical angle, you can make some decisions going forward that could benefit your mission at hand. So a historian can have a very important immediate operational role with the commander if they're properly utilized that way. And then finally, the historian helps maintain the history of the organization. People have pride in every organization they're in, and if you actually know what the organization did, that's really easy to grab onto. And soldiers, when they understand that, hey, 32nd Division in World War I was, kind of they were phenomenal. And then if you look at what they did in World War II and their Berlin crisis called up the 32nd Division of the Wisconsin National Guard and the Michigan National Guard has responded really well to in its mission of supporting the U.S. Army as a combat reserve. So having soldiers something to gravitate to that they understand with the units that they serve, it helps build pride, and people want to be part of something important and something real and something with some gravity to it, and that really helps the commander communicate that message. Say, hey, these people have done this. Look at how awesome they were. We got to continue that, and it's a lot easier to kind of embrace the suck. If you kind of
I think that's pretty awesome, and that does kind of lead us into what would be my next question. So for other unit historians out there, what other ways are there for unit historians to take their unit's history and influence the operations and the current activities of their unit?
done as a historian, I've done several things with our commands and at the operational level. First is when units deploy, they need to collect all of their records and maintain them. It says by regulation they are to do that, and there's several reasons for doing it. One is it takes care of soldiers. You get a soldier 10, 15 years after the deployment, they're trying to get pursue a VA benefit or some other action that because of their service. This helps establish their timeline, their location. This is important information that is needed to establish the proper criteria for these veterans to receive those benefits and to get what they have truly earned, and to accurately tell the story so the proper adjudication can happen. So it's a personnel protection issue that you can take care of your soldiers long after the deployment. And commanders, when you speak to them that way, okay, I get that. I need to take care of my troops. And so therefore, we're going to put some emphasis into this. And the other aspect of collecting materials from these deployments is so later historians and later soldiers can understand what happened there. Dawn of the Red Arrow could not have happened if I was not able to go to the National Archives, look at 120 file boxes of records of the division from World War I. I looked at personnel reports, I looked at awards, I looked at operations orders, I looked at after actions reviews, and I got to know some of the depth and the flavor and the activity of the division and how it grew, more importantly, how it grew at the time. It was really rough and raw when it was in the Alsace, when they first entered the trenches, and you can see the evolution of training and the emphasis of on working out processes at the command level and the staff level so battalions could be effective, and then how regiments could be more effective, and then how the division could use all of these pieces together. And you actually studied the major battles that the division fought in, and you can see that the work went in, and then you can see on the outcome of the battle that things went a lot easier, or the division was able to be a lot more flexible and scalable and deployable within the battle space. And to see how that evolution happened can create a great learning lesson today as units train to deploy and to do larger scale endeavors, incorporate a battalion into a new formation. And there's always a growing pain. How did they look at it back then? And you can see it's a lot of work, and the ability to tell that story is it's part of not reinventing the wheel, and it's an important aspect of that. And then also if no one maintains the records, how can we tell the story, and how can we know the great service that those soldiers did? How can we continue to impart that pride and impart that knowledge within the force as 10, 20, 30 years from now? So having that material collected to show what the unit did is very important, and that's another thing that commands need to understand when they deploy. Now, more direct to that is within current operations, like for a domestic operation here in the state, like an emergency, or we can look at what have we done before to respond to this. What have we done before with a civil disturbance or a flood or some other missions we've had? Because a lot of missions we've done before, and the community had different reactions to them depending on the situation. How can we learn from that for the commander to make a more informed or have some perspective when he or she makes the decisions to build a plan to address a mission that we've been given. So a historian can be really good at helping a commander provide an informed, thoughtful perspective while they consider how they're going to address a problem. And it's just part of that larger intellectual challenge and intellectual thoughtfulness that we want commanders to have, and increasingly more the Army would like, even junior leaders to have, is to think about this a little bit, think of the broader picture, and then make decisions based upon that. And history can be a very valuable tool with regard to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've mentioned before that, a lot of these guard units out there, this isn't the first time they've done these civil support missions. They've done these same sort of flood supports or natural disaster support, or even, in a time like today, supporting in case of some sort of medical emergency. Why would we reinvent that if we've done this before? Unit historian can find that information and present it to a commander to make a more effective plan. That's a great point.
But again, some missions we've never done before, like last Tuesday, we supported election poll working in Wisconsin with 2,500 Wisconsin National Guardsmen. The majority of election volunteers in our state are within that very vulnerable population to COVID-19. And there's a need for backfill to ensure a safe election within the state. And we put guardsmen, we brought them in, we trained them up to the standard, and they were distributed out to the state as county clerks saw fit. But there's going to be some important lessons with regard to that, because there was a new, unique mission. No one else has ever done it. So we're going to gather material for that, and we'll look at the after actions, we'll look at the orders, we'll look at some, how things went right and went wrong, because you never know. Maybe some other state will have to do this type of mission again, and big lifts of work may not have to be done if this can be written up and kind of examined and see what was right, what went wrong, and make it more of a template rather than inventing it from whole cloth. So that's a thing that we're looking at here or will be looking at here from a historian point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about NCODP or ODP programs and how you use Dawn of the Red Arrow with those?
We made the documentary available, of course, and there's units out there that have used this as for an NCODP and ODP to create and spark discussion. For our staff ride, which we hope to do this November, we are going to the participants in it will brief a piece of doctrine on a particular piece of terrain, and we'll look at that at the historical lens of what actually happened there. And we're bringing a videographer along, and we're going to film that. And we're going to turn it into kind of an educational product to bring the staff ride home, because only 10 people get to go, but we have 10,000 soldiers and airmen. So we want to be able to get more bang for the buck. So create some learning products that company commander can sit his lieutenants and his senior NCOs down. Let's look at how we do these principles of doctrine, and then they can have a discussion on that, and get something really worthwhile and valuable from these soldiers getting this great opportunity, but then also to bring part of that battlefield back home, and then they can see where where doctrine was actually implemented on a battlefield by soldiers of their unit.
So Major Faltinson, what is Dawn of the Red Arrow, and how does the Wisconsin Army National Guard use it to shape its leaders?
Dawn of the Red Arrow is a couple-year commemoration campaign that we had to recognize the service of 15,000 Wisconsin National Guard soldiers who answered the call for World War I. It's to recognize the 100th anniversary of that event. And a key thing about the National Guard of any state in World War I is that was the first time the National Guard was used after the adoption of the National Defense Act of 1916, when the Guard became the combat reserve of the United States Army. That mission has evolved a little bit since then, but the concrete bottom line of the Guard supporting the Army happened at that time, and World War I was the first time that was really implemented at that massive scale. And then a lot of the units in our state, the names of the units like the 127th Infantry, the 128th Infantry, the 32nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team, they come from World War I. Those names came about at that time. And it recognizes that key piece of history in those formations and throughout the state, because every unit in the state went as part of the 32nd Division, except for 3 for the 42nd Division. And a lot of those units today are now part of some other formation in our state. They're not part of the Red Arrow, but they all come from the same place. So we all share this history. And it's a way to connect our force with each other because there's good, healthy competition between the various brigade and battalion elements within our state. Excuse me. So Dawn Red Arrow has several components. That a social media component where we did like on this day 100 years ago. On this day 100 years ago, the Guard mobilized for service or fought in this battle, or the community supported their Guard unit in this way. And it just kind of recognized little pieces of the history. We compiled an anthology, a book of about 132, 35 pages.
Wow.
And that was vignettes of just different aspects of the deployment, whether there was a preparation at home, whether it was training, whether it was in France, and you'd find vignettes in that, like the first 2 females to earn the Silver Star in the entire U.S. Army were nurses attached to the 32nd Division during the Second Battle of the Marne. So that story is in there, and there's just other different interesting things that the division did just kind of fun little research projects as a historian. And then the culminating activity was the 84-minute documentary we made here in-house. We got a really talented NCO who knows he's a self-taught videographer. We gave him a pile of history, gave him a script, and he ran it to ground and put it together in a pretty compelling documentary that's available on YouTube for free because we cannot create DVDs for that. So anyone can watch it, and it tells the entire story of the 32nd Division in World War I. And what was really fun about that as a historian, I went to the National Archives. I found 500, 600, 700 photographs of the division in World War I. Found 2.5 hours of film of that era. So when you're looking at this documentary, the actual photos you see are division soldiers in France at that time, and the film that we incorporated it into it are the same people, and so it's not about 75% of the film is actual true to the time and the people that it talks about. There's not a lot of filler in there of just you watch some documentaries, you'll see the same bomb falling out of the same bomb bay doors in from documentary to documentary to documentary. We have very little of that. So it's very historically accurate. Like, for instance, we have a sermon of a chaplain. And we actually have the actual sermon that he wrote. We actually have the film of the time he actually gave that sermon, and we put those two together. That's kind of some of the historical accuracy that we really wanted to incorporate into the film. And,
that's incredible.
So we had the audience for this was many. We wanted to especially bring this out to the whole state of Wisconsin because it was the communities of the state that built the Wisconsin National Guard. That the city of Sheboygan had Company C, 2nd Wisconsin Infantry, which became Company C, 127th Infantry. That unit had been there a long time. Those are the people of that city that came together, and then that city offered up that unit to the Wisconsin National Guard for World War I. And that happened 72 times throughout the state. And so to show cities that, hey, this is, you've always been supporting us. You've always been coming and sending your people off to serve in the Wisconsin National Guard. And that's important today as we continually deploy units overseas. And we do get the question occasionally, why are you deploying the National Guard? You've never done that before. No, we've done it in World War I. We did it in World War II. We did it in 1961 for the Berlin crisis. We've done it in the Persian Gulf War. And we're doing it now again. But the Wisconsin National Guard has responded repeatedly as the primary combat reserve of the United States Army. So that's an important point to share with communities within our state. Within our force, Dawn of the Red Arrow is important in that we use it to communicate to our newest soldiers. This is where you're going to. This is what the unit you are going to join has done, and you are another piece in that long legacy of that unit. And you have a standard to live up to, and you have some footsteps to follow in as you blaze a new trail forward. And one exciting thing we've done with material for this is, first of all, during their RSP training, they see Dawn of the Red Arrow. I've presented it to RSP units, and they learn where they're coming from. And then when they're done with basic training and they're done with AIT, they come back, do a final RSP drill, and they have a patching ceremony. And they get the patch that they're going to wear, and whether it's a 32nd IBCT, the 157th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade, the 64th Troop Command Brigade. Those are all units that have a history to Dawn of the Red Arrow. And they learn a history of that patch, and they know what that means to wear that patch. What is the sacrifice that the soldiers before them made to create that patch and create the heritage behind it. And so they have some pride going into the unit that they belong to.
That's pretty incredible. So you use this project not only to build that sense of unit pride with your current serving formation, but to work to build kind of a collective memory with the local community as to how often the 32nd and the Wisconsin National Guard has served locally and internationally. And then with your brand new soldiers, before they even get to their unit, they're imbibed with this sense of unit history and unit lineage. It's a pretty amazing program that I think it's pretty unique anywhere in the Army National Guard.
So, there have been, patching ceremonies are kind of, they're being picked up around the rest of the country. We certainly, hey, this is a great idea, let's do it. But we're incorporating the history piece a little extra hard because, we got that material available, and, units in our state got a great history that the soldiers in it need to know.
Outstanding. Well, Major Faltinson, thanks again for coming out and sharing how the Wisconsin Army National Guard uses its long and storied history to educate and build leaders in its formation.
So, no, this has been a great experience. I love talking about Dawn of the Red Arrow. It's a really great project. If you want to see the documentary, it's available at our Dawn of the Red Arrow YouTube page. And we also have a Dawn of the Red Arrow website, which a link to the video. It also has a link to a number of photographs and smaller videos we did. It also has a link to the 135-page anthology or ebook that we created. And so that's the best spot to go see some of these products that we have made.